Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're breaking down a really interesting one from the WSC Biology 2026 archives, specifically question 18. Now, this explainer is powered by QandA Help, which is your absolute go-to spot for WAEC, JAM, and NicoPrep. Let's get right into it, shall we?
All right, so here's the question we're looking at today. It sets the scene with an ecological survey and mentions three prevalent factors in a community: high birth rate, low mortality, and high immigration. Then it asks for the likely implication of these factors. Now, before we even look at the options, I really want you to zero in on one specific phrase: community with limited resources. Lock your brain onto that, because that little phrase, that's the secret sauce. That is the anchor that totally dictates how we solve this whole thing. So let's unpack these three factors real quick. First up, we've got a high birth rate. Put simply, babies are being born left and right. New organisms are constantly entering the community through reproduction. You can picture a population counter just steadily ticking upwards, right? Like jumping from 100 straight to 130 in no time. Then we add the second factor into the mix: low mortality. Now, mortality is just a biological term for death rate. So a low mortality rate means very few organisms are actually dying off. When you combine that with all those new births we just talked about, you've got a situation where new individuals keep arriving and the older ones are sticking around a whole lot longer. And finally, factor number 3, high immigration. Here's a super helpful shortcut to remember this one. Think of the I in immigration as standing for moving into a place. We're talking about organisms from the outside literally packing up and moving into our ecological neighborhood. So even more bodies are being added to the mix. When you take a step back and look at the whole picture, the math is completely undeniable. You've got a high birth rate, low mortality, and high immigration. Every single one of these factors acts like an engine, just aggressively driving the population size up. The community is absolutely booming. But here's where we slam into a massive biological brick wall. Remember that phrase I told you to keep in the back of your mind? Limited resources. We have this huge, booming population on one side, but on the other side, the stuff they actually need to survive, food, water, space, shelter, that stuff is just completely stuck. It's not growing. The community is practically bursting at the seams, but the environment isn't expanding to support it.
And that brings us to a really foundational rule in biology. When you have way more organisms, but strictly limited resources, it equals increased competition. You literally cannot pack more living things into an environment that refuses to give up extra resources without causing a struggle. Everyone is suddenly fighting for the exact same scraps of food and space that used to comfortably support a much smaller group. So if you just follow that logic to the very next step, what happens? Well, when you have all that intense competition for a very limited supply of food, you are absolutely going to get a food shortage. It's inevitable. You simply can't feed a constantly growing crowd out of a pantry that never gets restocked. Let's actually make this a bit more relatable. Imagine you and 4 friends are sitting down for a study session, 5 students total, and on the table there are exactly 5 plates of food. It's perfect, right? The math works out beautifully. Everybody gets a plate, everybody's full, everybody's happy. There is zero stress and zero competition in that room. But what happens if 5 more hungry students suddenly crash the study session? That is our high birth rate and immigration in action. Now you've got 10 hungry students, but still only 5 plates of food. Conflict is basically guaranteed at this point, right? We all know how cranky hungry students can get. And that perfectly mirrors the intense competition and shortage these organisms face out in the wild. Keeping that hungry student scenario in mind, let's look at our exam options and do a quick process of elimination. Option A talks about increased food production. Well, we can cross that out immediately. A bunch of new organisms showing up doesn't magically make the soil sprout more food. Option B suggests a reduced population size. We can confidently toss that one too, because we just spent all this time establishing that births, survival, and immigration cause the population to absolutely surge, not shrink. Moving right along, option D claims competition will be reduced. Again, definitely not. Based on our 10 students and 5 plate situation, competition is going to skyrocket, not drop. So that leaves us with option C, increased competition and food shortage. The math makes sense, the biology makes sense. Without a doubt, this is our indisputable correct answer. Now, before we wrap this concept up, I want to give you a really cool exam tip. Think of population change like a simple bank account. Births and immigration are your deposits. They always add to the population.
On the flip side, deaths and emigration, which is with an E, meaning moving out, those are your withdrawals. They always subtract from the population. If you can visualize that little balance sheet, you'll be able to breeze through basically any ecology question like this in the future. And that leads us to our ultimate memory shortcut for today. Just repeat this to yourself. More organisms plus the same resources equals more competition. It is arguably the most vital concept to pull from this specific WAEC question. And honestly, it's the driving force behind almost every single natural ecosystem on Earth. Let's do a super quick recap of the logical steps just to make sure it's really locked in. Step 1, our 3 factors cause the population to spike. Step 2, the resources stay frustratingly limited. Step 3, because of that huge mismatch, intense competition kicks in. And finally, step 4, all that competition directly leads to a food shortage, which perfectly lands us on answer C. All right, you know I'm not going to let you leave without a quick test of your new skills. Let's flip the script. Imagine a community has a low birth rate, high mortality, and high emigration. What do you think the likely effect is? Your options are A, population increase, B, population decrease, C, increased immigration, or D, increased food production. Think back to our bank account rule. And here is the solution. A low birth rate means hardly any babies. High mortality means a lot of organisms are dying. And high emigration means huge numbers are packing up and leaving. When you stack all those subtractions together, you get a massive population decrease. So the correct answer is B. Awesome job if you walked through that logic and nailed it. Okay, one more rapid-fire quiz just to cement this limited resources concept for good. If a population increases, but the available resources remain completely unchanged, what is most likely going to happen? A, competition decreases, B, competition increases, C, mortality disappears, or D, resources become unlimited. I know you've got this one. The solution is simple. More individuals plus the exact same limited resources absolutely guarantees increased competition. So the correct answer is B. You guys have officially mastered the inescapable biological relationship between population size and resources. So, bringing it all back to WAEC Biology 2026 question 18, we can confidently confirm that the correct answer is for sure C. You guys did fantastic tracking the logic with me today. Be sure to head over to QandAHelp.com to access a massive library of past questions to supercharge your WAEC, JAM, and NICO prep. But before you go, I want to leave you with something to really chew on. If the human population continues to grow while the Earth's resources stay relatively fixed, what kind of competition do you think we'll be facing in the next 50 years? Something to think about. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.